I'm Tracy Felix from ArtSpot, and I want to welcome you very warmly to our DrawBridge drawing program. The thing about drawing is it's really the foundation of everything. So what we're going to get into on this first lesson is to really understand light and dark patterns and value. And just to give you a little tidbit of what's coming up. But hopefully you've received this lovely box in the mail. If you haven't, I'll give you a little preview of what to expect when you open it. It's a new program. We've never done this before, but we have had many years of challenges. And those years of challenges have taught us kind of like what people like. And they like the interaction with the people at ArtSpot, and they like learning how to use new art supplies. So when you get your DrawBridge box, it's going to have some fun little poofy paper here. It's our gift to you on this first box is a really beautiful felted Midtown pouch from Itoya company. When you open up your Itoya case, you'll notice it has a secret pocket here in the middle. But this is going to be a great case as you go through your first 3 months with DrawBridge. You can start keeping all of your supplies in here safe and sound. You'll notice that there's already something in there. This is a box of Willow charcoal. So when I started art school, we used charcoal, and it's a great set of supplies for a learning medium. And when you get into this, you'll see that there's a variety of charcoals. Now, these kind of charcoals can be called vine charcoal or willow charcoal, and literally the willow charcoal is from the willow tree, and vine charcoal is made from grapevines. So if you're one to want to drink a little wine with your art project, you might want to try some vine charcoal. They're very, very similar. So that's kind of a nice selection here. And the reason we chose this charcoal is it's a great learning medium. It's very forgiving, but also you can see there's lots of sizes of charcoal too. Already you can see I'm getting a little messy. That's all good. We like to dive in. Another thing you'll notice in here is a artist chamois. A chamois is a natural product. Old school, they were made from the mountain goats of Europe, and now they're made from sheepskin. And if you are a vegan and you want to substitute a microcloth, you could choose to do that, but a chamois is very traditional art supply. It's a very lovely thing. And I will show you my chamois that I've had since 1980. Yeah, 1980. I'll show you my 1980 chamois that I'm still using. Okay, so there's that. And then you'll also notice that there are 3 boxes clearly labeled 1, 2, just kind of gets into the green colors, and 3. And that is for February and March. So I'm going to show great constraint, as I'm sure all of you will, and not open those yet. But you know, as I like to say, there's no art police. No art police. No one's going to come in and arrest you if you open up box 2 and 3 because you can't wait. Okay, so we'll set those aside for now. But inside of box 1, here's the great reveal, more art supplies for you. So these are all coordinated to go together. This is a sandpaper pad, and this is a artist stump, and this is a kneaded eraser. And I'm going to be demonstrating to you tonight how to use all of these products. There's more. We have to have a surface to put it on, right? So after great consideration and trying many different kinds of pads, we decided we want to give you a mixed media pad. This is a hardbound cover. We're finding that the spiral bound are very popular with artists because you can just literally fold that all the way back. And this is a product by Canson company, and you'll find that there's a whole lot of pages, and they're nice thick sheets of paper, and it's got a nice bright white finish to it. So we're going to really enjoy working on that. And there's one more mysterious thing that you'll find down in the bottom of your box. So don't recycle this until you dig this out. And I'm going to show you what that's for in just a little bit. I promised to show you my 20-year-old collection, my 20-year-old chamois. I put this box together when I was in art school on State Street at the American Academy of Art. And on State Street, there was an old smoke shop that's probably been there since State Street. And they were so nice to give me a nice cedar box, and I've had it ever since. And every day when I'd go to my classes, I would take this with me to do my, my life drawing classes. So this is what a kneaded eraser looks like in your box, in your kit from DrawBridge. And you might even want to consider keeping that. You'll notice that you've got either a red, a yellow, or a blue kneaded eraser from Faber-Castell. And this is what my kneaded eraser looks like after many, many uses. A kneaded eraser actually absorbs the graphite or charcoal, and this will end up being kind of cruddy and black looking eventually too. This is what has become a chamois collection, but my original chamois is that. And you can literally, you can wash these if you want to and keep using them. Some things over time you might collect too might be a bulldog clip, something sturdy to keep your breakables in. These are graphite sticks, and a little stubby pencil that just keep everything forever. And you know, all of your pens and things that you just save forever. This is a big stump, and I used it for some blue. Anyway, all kinds of well-used and loved things there. But I'm going to switch back over to just using the same exact items that you've got in your DrawBridge kit. So I do have a project that I'd like to do with you to get started. As I mentioned earlier, I really want to give you a very good understanding of the value of understanding values. It's kind of an art school trope to say color gets all the glory, but the values are what is doing all the work behind the scenes. So let's make sure that we have a really good understanding, and this is something that we're going to be doing with our new tools as we keep moving forward with new art supplies. It's really important to understand the value range that you can work with a given material that you've been given. So just a really quick demonstration. If I have a piece of charcoal, I can get how dark. That's pretty dark. And if I go down through a bit of a length here, my goal is to just keep putting less charcoal down to see how light I can do this. Now, it might be your inclination to go ahead and get your finger in there and blend with your finger, and you can try that, but it's a good practice to use the stump to do your blending. The oils in your hands, like let's say you're doing a really nice commissioned piece later on of a portrait done in charcoal, or even in graphite, and you're going to be blending with your finger, the oils in your hands will actually incorporate into that, and over the years it can yellow, or it can actually get a little globby effect. So let's try to avoid globs. I've got my darkest black here, and so I don't want to start blending in the darkest. I want to save that section, and then I'm going to just go ahead and go down through here, and it looks like that's all pretty a long stretch here that's looking pretty much the same value. So I can keep working this back and forth. And you don't have to rub this in really hard. The harder you rub it into the paper, the harder it is to pick it up out of the paper. So even just doing a value study is helping to introduce you to the attributes of charcoal and how much you can push it and how much you can control it. So there you've got dark all the way down to light, and I could even possibly use my chamois. I'm actually picking some of it up on that chamois so you can reduce the amount of charcoal. Nope, I almost put my finger in there. Did you see me catch myself? So again, take time with this project. See See how smooth the gradation can become if you just work it back and forth. What if you use a different kind of a skinnier piece maybe? Get the feel of those. Still continuing to work this gradation to get it really smooth. It's called a turn. It goes from dark tones, medium tones, and right here is a long length that's all very much the same. So my goal is to get it to go lighter and lighter and lighter in a very even turn. So let's say I add a little more charcoal and I blend that in. That's a real fast turn. It's not an even turn. It changes too quickly. It's getting lighter and then it gets darker here. So I'm going to want to reduce the value down here a little bit by picking it up with my chamois. And it doesn't matter if yours goes really wide. Don't feel like you have to keep this real contained. Let it just be what it is on the edges. Remember to breathe when you're drawing. It's good. Try to use this time to relax your shoulders and become familiar with this new friend of yours called charcoal. I think I'm pretty happy with that. Okay, so you can do this and leave it in your book, or you can go ahead and cut it out. So that's why it might be nice to have a little extra width. All right, so this is my value scale. Just using charcoal, dark to light, even gradation, even turn, blended with my stump, not my finger. Now, we've created our own value scale. There are value scales you can purchase, but I think it's always kind of nice, instead of just going out and buying something ready-made, to have that experience with this material to see what this material's value range will be. This is something that a lot of artists do like to keep in their kit, but imagine having this in with your sketchbook, and I'm going to be using this as a tool to help you move forward to learning how to judge the values that you're going to want to put in your drawings. Okay? Remember how I told you to be careful not to recycle this little cardboard box? This is something that we came up with to actually give you a three-dimensional object to use for your first still life drawing, to really practice observing and learning how to judge your values and use this as something that's a really strong part of your drawing. All I'm doing is I'm just using plain old Scotch tape. I might still have a little charcoal on my fingers, and if it gets under the tape, it's okay. Because your artist studio wants to look like it's being used, right? Like they say, never trust a skinny cook. You never want to trust an artist whose studio is maybe too tidy. Okay, that's going to be your three-dimensional cube for your first drawing lesson. Using this white cube on a white background, I'm going to now take you through a process of, even though everything's white, there's still going to be a lot of value to understand how to describe these shapes in a two-dimensional format of a drawing. Cool. So this is kind of what I'm hoping that you might be able to swing as a setup at home. Basically, here's your cardboard box, and you're going to want to give yourself a strong light source. This is just basically just a home lighting. But if you have something that you can really direct right at this, and what you're shooting for is a lightest area, and then you'll have a shadow. And if you have just a white piece of paper, or even just a white piece of fabric that you can basically start, and then it sweeps up, and it's going to be taped to something back behind it. It could be the wall, or just a lamp base or something. This is a tripod I have set up. So basically you decreased or you're eliminating any kind of like horizon line. It's all just going to be focused on the very simple shapes and shadow that you've created just on the white box, white light, white sweep, and you're hopefully going to be able to create something that looks like this. One of the things I'm really so enamored with is it's not just learning how to draw, it's learning how to observe what you're looking at and translate what you're looking at in three-dimensional into a two-dimensional format that describes that. So one of the things you want to start looking at when you're drawing is to break the paradigm of drawing what you think you know to really just looking at what's there. And with something like this cube, you're going to want to really understand how the angles are. So when I'm going to start my drawing, this is the thing that you're going to want to practice while you're doing this project. Sometimes when you get into doing something that has these kind of shapes, you're dealing basically with perspective and a little bit of foreshortening. So things are going back in space, it's foreshortened, and you've got some different angles here. So when I'm going to draw something like this, I am going to try to capture that angle. So I'm going to look with my eye, capture the angle with a pencil, and bring it back over here. I can actually just even do it with my piece of charcoal so I can not have to switch it around. So I'm looking at the angle, and I'm mimicking the angle here. And then that angle, and I'm mimicking that angle there. All the sides are going to be straight up and down, even with the sides, right? 1, 2, 3. So that's what I'm going to be doing, even though you won't be able to keep looking over my shoulder. That's basically what I'm doing, and you'll see me doing that consistently through the rest of this drawing. I'm going to switch to using this photograph of what you're seeing here, so that from the overhead camera, you'll be able to see it a little more clearly from what I'm talking about. So I'm going to switch over to this, and I'm going to take this angle and mimic it. And I don't want you to feel like you have to get it right on the first try. That's the beauty of charcoal, is that it's so forgiving. You can push it around, erase it, put it down, erase it, push it around until you've gotten it where you want it to be. So I'm going to go angle, angle, angle. And this angle here might not be exactly the same, so you just want to just give yourself a little wiggle room. And I'm going to go ahead and let my lines be extended far past. I'm already seeing that, oh, you know, that looks like that's going to, on this format, I think that looks like, I really should have this higher. Maybe it's going to be more like that. So again, I'm correcting. Super easy to do those corrections. So the thing about becoming a good drawer is learning observation skills and being willing to do corrections. The more you draw, the less corrections you'll have to do because you just naturally get better at it. Angle, angle. Now don't assume that this angle is the same. Look at that. See that different angle? And that's where you start getting into perspective. Still don't think I have this exactly right. So I don't want this line. I can either get rid of it now, or I could just leave it be there and it'll blend in later. So I'm going to do the same for the bottom. This is a much sharper angle. I'm not really quite sure where it needs to land exactly. I can kind of give myself a loosey-goosey line that I can correct later. Now, one thing great about perspective is generally verticals are going to be pretty much straight up and down all the time. So you can use the side of your paper, come over, And I'll be able to get these corners to line up here, here. And you might have a seam in your cube from where the tape is going across, and you can just ignore those if you want. Now, obviously this is a line drawing. We're just blocking in the big shapes. When we're done, we're not going to want to see lines. Every shape and every side is going to be defined only by the value that it is. So let's get out our tool that we made. We know that we can get all these values from this drawing utensil. And I'm going to just try to get an idea, like where on this value scale does this seem to go? There's no place on here that I'm going to want to have pure black because these are white shapes, so this doesn't make much sense that anything's going to be all the way super, super dark, but generally speaking, this side looks like it's on the darker side, the darkest value of the cube. It's farthest away from the light. I'm making my lines kind of follow the side that it's on. And just be very clear that light source, if you notice, is coming from above. So it makes perfect sense that the very top of my cube is going to be the lightest of the three surfaces of my cube. That doesn't mean it's all the way white. I can still give it some value. So now I'm going to go ahead and blend it. Now that we're experts at blending because we did our value scale, we learned how to do that. So I want my lines to either be up and down, or I want them to be following that angle again of the side. So that's my darkest side. This is going to be my medium. And if it doesn't come out the right value on my first try, that's okay because it is just my first try. What I'm really concentrating on is trying to get the shapes to match, and I'm trying to get the values to describe the shapes. So there's a little bit of scribbly there. It's okay. I can blur my eyes, or at this point in my life, I can just take my glasses off. If you look at things with a little bit of a squint or without your glasses on, sometimes you can just see the values without all the little detail things that might be distracting you. But generally, this value is a little bit lighter than that, and both of these are darker than the top. But again, I don't want my top to be perfectly white, so I'm just going to take and tone this a little bit with just a little bit of the charcoal that's on my stump. And I'm trying to lose these lines. Those lines gotta go away. That's kind of like one of the forbidden things when I was in my fundamentals class in college is you can't cheat and describe things with line. You have to do it with value. I can always go back in and make these a little cleaner. And this is like a cool inside artist trick thing. Things that are closer to you are going to be more defined than things that are farther away. And even though this is just a 4-inch box, this corner is closer to me than that corner. So this corner should have a more defined edge and maybe just a little bit more value there to help define the edge. It's very subtle. I'm kind of exaggerating just so you can see what I'm talking about, but these are the kind of things that will serve you well when you go to do portrait work or outside landscapes or urban settings. So even just within the side, this is one tone, but even within that tone, this is a little bit more defined and sharper, and this is a little bit softer on the far side. I'm pretty happy with this tone. I'm just going to leave that for now. And then I'm going to go back to my photograph. In real life, you'll be looking at your still life and your light source and your shadow, but just so that I can define this with the overhead camera here, so you can see what I'm looking at. If I squint at this shadow appears to be darker value than this side, and this line of the shadow is going to be much harder line, then see how blurry it is? This is close to me, this is farther away, this is darker, and it gets lighter as it goes back. So let's see if we can mimic that as well. Double check I can always do correction. Get my angles right. So I know that this is your lesson for an entire month, and you're like, well, it won't take me that long to draw a cube. But think about it this way. Are you just going to draw one? Are you just going to draw it from the same angle and be done? Are you going to be happy that you've mastered something with just trying it one time? Go ahead and do it. Try to bring some of your creative ideas. Send us some JPEGs at ArtSpot so we can see what you're doing, and maybe you'll be able to grow this project into some new fun things that maybe I hadn't even thought of yet. But do this over, try to think of variations of how to do it, and if we have time, I have another variation I can show you. But just knowing that this is going to be a nice sharper, and then as it goes this way, it's going to get softer. It's farther away from the light. This is closer to the source, farther away. When you're trying to make a shadow look like it's sitting on a surface, go ahead and draw your lines, your shading to follow the surface that it's sitting on. And here, the shadow goes up about this far, and it's going to be a soft edge. So I'm really not drawing a line, I'm drawing in the shadow, which creates that edge for me. You're an artist. You can be as eccentric and crazy as you want, and no one can judge you. The worst and hardest judge that you might encounter is that inner voice of your own self-critic. So like I said, let's go ahead and silence that. And you can have that just go right off the edge. What about this little white corner here? Looks like I should just have that match. And that's what's nice about the stump, is it gives me the ability to get in there. I've already got a pretty clean edge. How many of you have drawn a cube already, maybe back in elementary school? Hopefully I'm bringing something new to this, but this is really just to give you a great start to be able to talk about value. So basically we've got the cube, now we've got this, it's sitting on a surface. A shadow is a great way to make something be attached to the surface and sit it down on that surface. But this is all white objects, but this is not just an all white background. Remember how we did that sweep? Sweep has a gradation from light to darker all across here. This is darker than the background, this is lighter than the background. Let's see if we can recreate that as well. That background really isn't all the same shading. You can look at a photograph as much as you want, but you're going to need to bring your artistic knowledge to it. I'm going to need to come up with a value that's darker than the light top, but it's not as dark as the side. So I have to choose a value. If this is about here, I'd say that's about here, and this is about here, then something in the middle here should be about what I want to be able to serve both of those purposes. It's darker than the top, and it's going to be lighter. You might discover whether you're a persnickety artist and you like everything to be very clean and defined and precisely executed, or maybe you don't mind it's a little scribbly. I mean, maybe you can tell how you are even by looking at the way you cook. If you're a messy cook, an intuitive cook, or you follow that recipe and it's got to be measured out exactly, that's how you should think about drawing. It's going to be how you do it. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and show you one that's a little bit further along. This is the same drawing. It's got a little bit of shading back here. This is where I pressed kind of hard. And if this happens to you, and you try to go in with your eraser to clean up an edge and it doesn't clean that up, it only means that that charcoal was kind of ground into that surface. So these are things with experience you'll be able to mitigate by having a lighter touch maybe at the beginning of your drawing. This is the beauty of a kneaded eraser. You can go in and you can really clean up. Like, turn your paper just so you can get at the angles you want. And see how I'm making my kneaded eraser have a shape that gives me the shape I need to clean up an edge. Get rid of those. Get rid of that. Clean this up. Don't like this line here. That's breaking my rule. It's depending on a line to show what we're doing. So you just go as long as you want, back and forth, adding a little charcoal here, using your chamois, using your stump to get these values so it shows the shape of this box being hit by light, casting a shadow, and there's a background that can have a little value as well. So this background here does not have to be the same over here as it is here. And this is where you can depart from the initial reference or what even you're looking at. If you feel in your artist's mind that this would be better described if this had a little bit of value here or more value here. Like, I decided to go ahead and make this kind of fade out in a slow turn here. It's helping me get rid of that line at the top. I did that. Okay. I'm going to do another really quick lesson, taking the same goal of creating these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different value tones. But instead of starting with a white piece of paper, one of the things that a lot of artists will do, and atelier drawing as well, is that you start with what's called a mid-tone. Ooh, this is fun. It's a little messy. You have to be so like perfect in the rest of your life, but you can be messy in your art, right? All right, that's what I think. Okay, so I've created a mid-tone. So where is that mid-tone in our value range? Can you see how I can judge it by, I'd say it's about right in here. And I'm thinking that's probably where my background's going to be. So that means when I sketch in my cube, I'll leave this be the background color and I'll darken it a little bit and then a little bit more for these two sides and maybe even a little bit more for the shadow. So again, angle, 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 angle. Looks like I'm going, whoa, that's way off. Okay, so I can correct. I think this is looking more like a rectangle. In the idea that I want to take a little bit less time, I would go back and keep correcting this. I don't think my angles are exactly right, but that's part of drawing, is going back and taking the time. But just to respect your time watching, because I bet you're really excited to start drawing. How many of you are drawing along with me while I draw? So you could watch this and then do it yourself, or you could do it along with. Okay, so I'm going to get this darker. And then this darker, but not as dark as that side. So you see what I'm doing here? I'm going to just rough this in, consider it a draft. Just to give you an idea of another way to approach this through a mid-tone start. I'm going to work that line into the tone of the side and not leave a line. Okay. Not halfway, it's a little bit lower. This is going to be a softer edge of the shadow. Not quite as dark back there. Laying the lines on the surface. Harder fades, softer than this. Then, the beauty of the Kneaded Eraser on a mid-tone, or if you wanted to heighten it with a white pencil, that's how a lot of portrait in the Renaissance time was done. But I can actually lighten up this top as a last step. Try to get rid of some of these lines. Cheater lines, can't show at the end. And when I look at my actual box, the very front little lip right here, I'm getting myself a nice little edge here. This has a nice white front. It's the whitest white right in here in the front. So this might be a little whiter here than it is towards the back. And of course this is lighter too. Clean up that edge a little bit. Okay, just to give you an idea, this is our first drawing where we really used our values, lightest, medium, darkest, a little bit darker. And I can always go back and clean these up, little fingerprints happen. And then this one was done starting with a mid-tone, having fun with that sandpaper and the chamois to rub in, make a mid-tone, and then creating a light and dark on top of the mid-tone. So what do you think? Think you could do that? Please do send us suggestions, send us frustrations, send us successes, send us what you're doing. If you think of other versions of this, let us know what you come up with your charcoal. And we are busy cooking up some fun things for you to expand on this idea, going into that box number 2 and box number 3 that are tucked into your first DrawBridge. So thank you for joining me, and any feedback is welcome. And we're at artspotedmonds@gmail.com. Again, I'm Tracy Felix from Artspot. So go forth and draw.